Hey everyone, Michelle Seidling here with another episode of Military Transition Wellness, the podcast dedicated exclusively to those transitioning from military service. Today we are talking about health and fitness routine. Here to help us do that is Luke Atchley, a coach and Marine Corps veteran. Welcome to the podcast, Luke. This podcast is available on multiple platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and others. Please be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to be informed as new episodes become available. If you enjoyed today's episode or any of our episodes, please rate and review the podcast on your favorite platform. As always, check out our website at foodexperienceunplugged.com for some resources as you begin your health journey.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you here. Well, will you take a moment to tell us a little bit about yourself and your Marine Corps experience, and then why you decided to become a coach afterward?
Sure. So, I've joined the military right out of high school. So I graduated in 2007 and went into the Marine Corps boot camp like 2 weeks afterwards. I did 5 years in the military there. I was in the infantry and security forces. So my first stint, I actually did a tour with Marine Corps security forces out in Kings Bay, Georgia, and then the second half of my military career, I got shipped out to Camp Pendleton, California. And did a spin up out there and found myself on a tour in Afghanistan to kind of round things out. And that was finished things off in 2012. And since exiting the military, I've been coaching for over a decade now. So I can't believe it's been that long since I exited, actually. It's been a wild ride for sure. But fitness is one of those things that really helped me with transitioning out of the military, actually. Is one of the things that I found was able to really kind of help ease the transition of kind of the change out of the culture of being in the Marine Corps for for 5 years, everything I'd known for my adult life, into going back to school and starting a business and everything like that. So yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So tell me a little bit more about how that helped you in your own personal transition.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially as they're exiting the military, like they're so used to being in this routine, this set routine of, like I'm told when to show up. This is, PT is at 0500 in the morning, and then we're doing this, and then we're doing this, and then you exit the military, and you've got nothing but freedom and options all of a sudden, where you're the only person that you're accountable to is yourself, essentially. And for better or worse, that's quite a shock or quite a transition, when after being told for so long, this is when you show up, this is the uniform that you're in and everything like that. And so, there's transition assistance and, the TAPS program and everything like that when you exit. But I think so much of us just kind of find ourselves, just looking, at this menu of options, and kind of either get this paralysis by analysis, or whatever you want to call it. But one of the things that was able to remain constant from the military, for me at least, was the fitness routine, right? And that was just one of those things that gave me more of a sense of normalcy as I moved back home, Arizona, originally. And so that's one of those things that I found was very calming for me, was very soothing for me, as I transitioned out of the military, was just being able to maintain that routine of some semblance of normalcy, in a world, in a sea of options, as you're getting your civilian life started. So
Okay. So you felt that because, of course, you did PT and all of that in the military. So coming out of it, did you have your own routines and so forth, or did you have to kind of do some research and see what is available in terms of fitness?
Sure. Yeah. That's a great question. Like I've always been somewhat of a fitness nerd, from my time before the military. As I prepared, for entering into the Marine Corps, I always wanted to be, score that infamous 300, PFT and stuff like that. So I'd always, had a deep interest in fitness. Probably one of the reasons why I did choose the Marines over, some of the other branches where, the Marine Corps just places such a high emphasis on physical fitness, to a large extent. So that's probably one of the reasons why, looking back on it, I probably was driven more towards the Marine Corps. So I had some semblance of, what it looked like, what a fitness routine looked like, just from personal research, and then having that set routine in the morning from the Marine Corps. But yeah, definitely what I did afterwards was I joined a couple of different gyms, right? So I had just a commercial gym that you're just essentially paying to rent equipment. But then I also came into a CrossFit gym, which for better or worse, on whatever people's opinions are of CrossFit, one of the best things that happened from that was that it got me connected into a group of people, that I was able to then socialize with, and have and strengthen some ties and stuff like that. So, a CrossFit gym where you're doing more of like a boot camp style workout is going to be have a little bit higher degree of community, so you don't feel alone as much, right? So.
Okay, so you really gravitated to that CrossFit. Essentially, was that based on your Marine background then?
Yeah, I mean, it was fairly popular in the Marine Corps at that time. And it was a good starting point for sure. And that's what it was for me. It was a starting point. I got certified. That was actually the first certification that I actually got, was a CrossFit certification. And that just kind of opened the doors into a bunch of different styles of training, because CrossFit is a very it's hard to define, but they take a lot. They borrow a lot of fitness methods from from powerlifting, from Olympic weightlifting, from gymnastics and different things like that. So it was kind of like a gateway drug into these other different forms of fitness that that I kind of was then able to take my philosophies of fitness and kind of tailor them into more useful practices for myself at least, and my clients actually. But yeah.
Sure. Now, so it was pretty soon after you exited that you're decided to go into coaching, and that really took off.
Yeah.
So that just because of your love of it personally,
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they're looking back on it. So when I was in the Marines, I was also a marksmanship instructor or coach, right? So so I excelled at that when I had been in there, was the coaching element, the teaching element of it. And so that was definitely a big thing. I think experiencing just how big of a game changer fitness can be in terms of overall quality of life for people, really kind of like was one of those things that really motivated the decision for me to get into coaching with with regard to fitness, at least, right? Is just fitness is connected to so many things as far as quality of life that it just really felt like the mission of making a difference out there in somebody's life, and gave me a sense of purpose that was a little bit lacking when you transition from the military. So
Sure.
so that was one of those ways. Yeah.
Okay. Now, with regard to the as people exit the military and
Hmm.
finding their own routine and fitness and health things of that nature, um, what what is your what would you recommend as far as their journey? Everyone has
Hmm.
their own journey, I suppose, in that regard.
Sure. Yeah, everyone definitely has their own journey when it comes to building, a fitness practice, right? What that looks like is going to be different based off of what your experience is, what your background is, and everything like that, right? And I think there's three really big keys, right? The first key is just focusing on making sure that it's actually existing on the calendar, like you have a routine, right? You're taking control of your time. Right. So that would be key number one. Key number two would be focusing on what matters when it comes to building a fitness practice. There's a lot of options out there that can be a little bit overwhelming for people. And that's one of those things that's going to, having a coach, or doing your own research, or getting a good book, or whatever the case is, will be beneficial in helping people focus on what matters. And the third thing is going to be focusing on recovery, and and how to recover, because a lot of people don't realize that so much of fitness and like working out and stuff like that is going to be directly tied to your ability to recover from that exercise session. So if when we circle back and we think about like key number one when it comes to getting control of your time and your calendar, right, is just making sure that you're actually scheduling time to actually make fitness a priority in your life, whether it's blocking or whether it's kind of setting a standing appointment with yourself. But the key is just making sure that you have something on the calendar, or you have a regular time that you are dedicating to yourself. Does it have to be 5 days a week? No, it doesn't have to be 5 days a week, but having a dedicated, standing appointments set on the calendar for your fitness is one of those ways that you're going to make sure that it actually exists and actually gets done. So that's that. So that'd be key number one. Key number two, focusing on what matters, is key, right? So most of the people that are looking for something that matters, as far as their fitness and nutrition and health is concerned, right, is like there's just so many different options and so many books and so much information out there. But really, I've been able to boil it down to a couple of things, right? The first one is focusing on a good strength training routine, right? So focusing on building strength. Strength is kind of what we call a mother quality in the fitness industry, right? So if you want to lose body fat, if you want to improve your endurance, if you want to improve your power output or your sprinting speed or your athleticism, focusing on building strength can be, I'm sorry if you can hear the beeping, I'm sorry.
Right.
But focusing on building strength, that's a mother quality, right? So that's going to be one of those things that is kind of like the foundation, right? So 2 to 3 times a week of focusing on building strength in the gym is going to be one of the biggest and most high return on investment times that you can set aside, activities that you can set aside within that time block, that schedule, right? So focusing on that is going to be key. When it comes to like, what kind of exercises should I do when I'm strength training? That's a great, so there's 5 categories that I tend to focus on, right? So a pushing exercise, a pulling exercise, a squatting exercise, and a hinging or a bending exercise. And then we follow that up with like some type of a carry. Okay. So push, pull, squat, hinge, loaded carry is kind of how it's divided up, right? Those are going to be your biggest bang for your buck exercise categories. Okay. And we like to think of exercises in movements, not necessarily muscles. So we want to think that I'm doing a pushing exercise like push-ups. Okay. A pulling exercise, something like a pull-up or a chin-up or a body weight row or something along those lines. A squat would be a classic example of a squat, but also kind of falling in that squat category would be like a lunge or like a lunge or a split squat or something along those lines. And then finally, within the hinge category, we have something like a deadlift pattern. A kettlebell swing would be another example of a hinge. And then carrying, a loaded carry. So that's just something as simple as like you do a lot of this in the military, but it's just picking things up and walking from point A to point B. Generally speaking, with like a set of heavy dumbbells or a set of kettlebells or something along those lines, and you're just walking and you're training what's called your gait pattern. And that's a great way to get a very, very efficient exercise routine done in a relatively short amount of time. 30, 45 minutes in the gym, and you're pretty much done. So focusing on what matters there. So strength training, number 1. Number 2 would be smart cardio. And by smart cardio, I think a lot of people think I just tie my shoes on and then I go for a run. And that's not necessarily bad. But you also want to have a way to measure kind of the stress that you're putting on your body. And we do that with a heart rate monitor. Okay. So the bulk of most running or cardiovascular activity should be done in what's called zone 2. Zone 2 is the aerobic training zone, right? So basically what we're looking for is 180 beats per minute minus your age. And that's the level of intensity that we're trying to keep our heart beating at for a duration of like 20 to 30 minutes. It's less stressful on the body than going out there and running like till you throw up. It's less stressful on your body than the medium pace stuff or, and running sprints and stuff. So training smart cardio like that, where you're actually measuring the stress that you're putting on your body, is going to be one of the most beneficial things that you can do for heart health, for mood, all of those things, right? And then finally, key number 3 is focusing on recovery. Okay. This is one of those things that I think a lot of people miss when they are implementing a fitness routine, is that they don't put such a high emphasis on recovery. And recovery is so, so important, because recovery is where all the good things happen. That's all the magic that happens, right? So exercise, a lot of people may or may not realize, is a stress on the body, right? And so you need to recover so that your body can then adapt to that stress, right? And your body adapts to that stress with all the fun things like bigger muscles or, a lower heart rate or better blood work or all of that stuff. That's the adaptation. So if we're constantly stressing our body and we don't recover from that exercise or that stress, then you're not going to get the benefits of the adaptation. So we need to really put a focus on that recovery, and that'll help with long-term consistency as well, right? So how do you recover? Well, one of the simplest ways is by sleeping. And that was one of those things that a lot of people just, seem to take for granted, especially former military guys, is, they just like, I can sleep when I die type of a thing. We kind of wear it as like a badge of honor type. and that's one of those things that is going to be hugely important for your body's ability to recover, is just making sure that you're getting the 7.5 hours of sleep plus or minus 30 minutes on either side, in a cold, dark, quiet room. That's where all your body restores its hormones. It, like your brain recovers. All kinds of different things happen when you're sleeping. So it's so vitally important for you to get that sleep in to then recover from and and reap the benefits of all of those adaptations. Um,
Sure.
and then the other, like, kind of most obvious thing is making sure that you're just getting adequate food in your body, right? And making sure that you're eating to recover. So those three keys are really what's important for maintaining a good, consistent fitness practice.
Okay. Now, on that recovery end of it, you mentioned eating certain foods to recover. So, will
Mhm.
you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think like the biggest thing that most people should focus on, the biggest rock that most people should focus on, is going to be making sure that you're getting quality protein in your diet. Okay. So protein is essentially the building blocks that your body is made out of, right? So if you're not getting adequate protein from your diet, you're not going to be recovering at the optimal rate. You're not going to be building muscle at the optimal rate either, right? Now, how much protein should somebody be getting? I mean, it varies from person to person. Generally speaking, kind of like the age-old fitness, you know, advice is usually a gram of protein per pound of body weight. You could also go a pound of protein, or I say a pound of protein, a gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. So if you know what your body fat percentage is, you can basically subtract your body fat percentage and then just only use lean tissue, and that'll make the amount a little bit more manageable for some. Like if you got a 200-pound guy, eating 200 pounds of or 200 grams of protein per day can be a little bit much, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. But that same guy, say he's 20% body fat or whatever the case is, right? So now he's, let's see here, he's can like eat 180 grams of protein essentially, right? So
Mhm.
but protein is huge. It's huge. It helps with appetite suppression, metabolism, everything like that. So so adequate protein is good. Too much, like more is not better in this case, right? You just want to make sure that you're getting adequate protein.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, also with regard to each of these
Mhm.
areas, what are some struggles that you're seeing with people as they exit the military and try to make sense of all of this?
Yeah, I think like so. One of the biggest struggles with time management is just the fact that like we kind of just let things happen to us versus kind of like taking control of our own schedule, our own time, right? So
Mhm.
and it's the biggest thing that I see that, or that I went through when I was transitioning from the military, was the fact that like I didn't have anybody to keep me accountable to a set schedule. It was just me, right? So getting an accountability buddy, getting a coach, or finding something that is going to keep you accountable is going to be huge, right? Now, maybe we don't have access to that, but like finding the skills necessary, or in like developing the skills necessary to, maybe create a to-do list, and then putting it, and then transferring that over onto an actual schedule, because a to-do list that doesn't exist in time is just a recipe for sadness, right? So, um, so we want to think about like having our to-do list and then transferring it over into like an organized calendar. And what you'll find too is that like most, like you may have time after you transition from the military. Maybe you're going straight into school. Maybe that's going to be something that you're going to have to become more organized with your time as well, right? So that skill becomes all the more essential for being a success in the civilian world, right? So also learning to prioritize. What are the things that
Mhm.
you're willing to say yes to, and what are the things that you need to say no to, right? So you're like, what's fun is that you're the boss when it comes to that stuff, right? You're the one that gets to decide what you value and what you think is not worth your time, essentially, right? So being able to learn how to prioritize, set priorities. Saying yes to something means saying no to something else. So
Sure.
um, and in terms of fitness, there's a number of great books that I can recommend. And that's one of the things that the struggles that I see with a lot of people is they want to continue doing fitness in some form or fashion, and they just kind of go back to essentially the military. I'm just going to get up and run. Right. And that's, generally speaking, it's not necessarily wrong. I'm going to run, maybe do some push-ups and do some pull-ups. And is that certainly better than nothing? Absolutely. Especially for just like the benefits of the mental health side of things. But as you transition out of the military, having some resources, getting potentially just paying a personal trainer or a coach that's in the area that's well respected, that has a good track record of creating results. Maybe paying them, like, for maybe not like starting with a personal trainer, but maybe you pay that personal trainer to write you a program to get you started on the right path. And so that can be a lot more cost efficient for somebody, rather than trying to sit there and sift through all of the books and all the articles and things like that. Is just going to a fitness professional saying, hey, can I pay you for an hour of your time for you to run me through an assessment, to write me a program, and then I can follow it, get my marching orders, and and then go from there, right? And then that coach can potentially help you with form and exercise technique and all kinds of different stuff, right? And then from the recovery side of things, that's always interesting, because nutrition and sleep are key, and there's a million different diet books out there. Diet is kind of like the new religion. There's a new fad every so often. So
Sure.
so, that one can be kind of tough, but like I said, there are certain courses out there that you can take if you're really interested in it. But I think, like, the big thing is taking inventory of what you enjoy eating, and then kind of trying to modify your life around that, right? Because food is so much more than just fuel. There's a very social element that's associated with food. I mean, I live here in the South, in Louisiana, and everything involves food down here. And so, like, so kind of learning, essentially, okay, if I'm going to follow the keto diet, let's just say the keto diet, since that's on the front of everybody's mind right now, which is like zero carbs, higher fat and moderate protein, if you're doing it correctly, right? A lot of people just think the keto diet is just no carbs, but really, in reality, like, if you're consuming protein at a high level, your body can make carbohydrates from protein. It's a process called gluconeogenesis. It's a really fascinating thing, but that's like, if you're consuming a lot of protein, that's actually enough to bump you out of ketosis. So you have to watch your protein intake if you're going to do keto correctly.
Sure.
But just a little fun fact. Um, but but if you're going to go keto, are you telling me that you're never going to enjoy a piece of birthday cake ever again? Are you telling me that you're never going to take your son out for donuts in the morning on Sundays, while mom rests in bed, or whatever the case is?
Sure.
And those are going to be things that you have to take into account when it comes to choosing a system of eating, whether it's paleo or keto or any and all of those things, flexible dieting, any all of those stuff. So I think a lot of the struggle that I see is just people are just dazed and confused as far as, like, what is quote unquote correct, right? Versus kind of taking a step back and kind of looking at the principles, which are, if you want to lose weight, you're going to have to eat a little bit less. So calorie controlled, is it, and is it something that's sustainable? Is at the end of the day, is like, is it something that you can follow for an extended period of time, in order to get the results that you're looking for? So.
Okay. Now, do you have some examples of people with whom you've worked as they've implemented these things into their post-military life?
Yeah. So I've worked with a number of different individuals, but yeah, I'm trying to think of a couple of them right now. But as they transition, there's a couple of guys that I've helped with, that have gotten out of the Marine Corps, that have been looking for some sense of getting quote unquote in shape or back in shape for whatever purpose it is. Whether it's one guy I helped with getting ready for his PT test for entering into the law enforcement, right? And so
Sure.
like, something like that is just as simple as, like, what's your schedule like? How many hours a week are you wanting to exercise? What's the test that you're going to be doing, right? So it's all based off of their goal, right? So what is your goal when and that'll adjust what the training looks like. So so one guy that I've helped, he's a CPA now. He doesn't have to do anything physical from that sense, but he enjoys, like, going on ski trips and things like that. So we're going to do stuff that is focused on injury prevention. His diet and his exercise routine looks completely different from the other guy that I'm helping pass his law enforcement, physical fitness test, right? So,
Sure.
like, those guys both were transitioning out of the Marine Corps. They're buddies of mine that transitioned out of the Marine Corps around similar time, a little bit after me, but was able to help them. And I was honored to be able to help them. Um,
Mhm.
and so, but just finding, once again, that accountability buddy. I was able to keep them accountable to their fitness routine, stuff like that. So, um,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Now, for those just starting out, what are some of the first steps to take to try to make sense of it all and do what works for them, essentially?
Yeah. So first steps when it comes to getting started, I mean, is just that. It's to get started, right? To make the decision that you're going to actually take action and do something, right? So, when it comes to starting a routine, you're going to need to focus on, um, you know, finding one, probably finding a gym, unless you're deciding on working out from home or whatever the case is. But finding out like what it is
Sure.
that what modality, essentially, what mode of exercise are you going to get started with, right? There's not necessarily a wrong answer here, right? You can plenty of people get strong doing just body weight exercise or like gymnastics type stuff. Some people plenty of people prefer, you lifting weights.
Mhm.
So, finding what is going to bring you joy and happiness when it comes to your fitness practice is going to be key. Like, some people enjoy yoga, some people enjoy, so like there's a number of different options, and try them all, see what works best for you. There's not necessarily a wrong answer. Am I a little bit biased when I say that I think that strength training and focusing on getting stronger is probably going to be the biggest return on your investment when it comes to the time that you spend in the gym? Yes, I would say that. But once again, the most important thing is consistency. That's the key, is consistency.
Mhm.
So when it comes to getting started, be thinking about, what are these things that I can do long term versus I need to lose 10 pounds. What can I do to get it off the fastest? Um,
Mm.
because the longer it takes to get in shape, the longer the shape will stay. And so, if you want to get in shape, or you're wanting to maintain being in shape, developing those habits, those routines, is going to be the key to you sustaining those results long term, versus just working out and then saying that, like, and pushing and white knuckling things really really hard and saying no, like, and saying, I've arrived at my goal. Now I can go back to eating, Lay's potato chips and, playing Xbox or watching Netflix and doing nothing, right? Because that's essentially what got you into trouble in the first place. Was that, right? It was the lack of activity, the lack of that set routine. And that would be step number one. Like, if you're wanting to get started, I'm sorry, if you're wanting to get started, just try stuff. You make the decision and you go try stuff. If you're wanting to get started with strength training, go join a gym. It could be something as simple as a Planet Fitness for $10 a month. It could be something as big of an investment as going and working with a personal trainer, and finding a private gym and working with a personal trainer that's close by you. You could also do online coaching, which is another thing. Remote coaching has, thanks to the pandemic, has taken off. Right, you can go find remote coach pretty much anywhere. Um, and if it's a good remote coach, they'll take you through an assessment, and they'll say, hey, tell me how many times a day or how many times a week you want to work out. What equipment do you have available? Are you working out from home? Are you working out in a commercial gym? Do you have any injury history or limitations? All of those things when you work with and they'll be able to tailor everything for you and your routine, and then they'll also be able to keep you accountable. So if you say, I want to work out 3 days a week, and you don't log 3 days a week of workouts, and they'll be, emailing you or texting you or whatever the case is, like, hey man, what's going on? Are you on vacation? Are you, are you, what's going on? And they'll be able to kind of help, kind of hold your feet to the fire when it comes to, making that thing. And they'll also be able to help you troubleshoot and sidestep certain things. Right. So there's a lot of benefits to working with an exercise professional, a real pro, when it comes to helping people, like, get started with their routine, right? Because that can be the most overwhelming step. But once you just get started, once you start trying things and experimenting, and then maybe getting help from a professional, like, good things are going to happen when you're able to find a routine that you can actually do consistently and enjoy.
Okay. Now talk to us a little bit about, like, making sure you have a maintenance plan. A lot of
hmm
times there are people are really good at starting and maybe they
hmm
do it for a while, but then things kind of peter out.
Yeah, I think this is such an interesting thing because a lot of people, when they do this, when they first start exercising, call it like New Year's or whatever the case is, they're like, I'm going to work out 6 days a week and, I'm going to have zero carbs and I'm going to do, and it's going to be great. And, like we get all motivated and then something happens and life happens, right? Life gets in the way. You transition from the military, whatever the case is. And like, I think one of the biggest things that people can do is realize that life, just like a professional athlete, has seasons, right? So you as a human have seasons, right? So there are seasons for you to ramp up your fitness to where maybe you go from working out, 2 times a day to working out, or not 2 times a day, 2 times a week, to working out 4 times a week or whatever the case is, right? So you can kind of play with the frequency a little bit. But what's funny, or not funny, but what's interesting is like there's going to be times during the year when namely the holidays, but like where, okay, my fitness is not going to be the number 2 priority on my agenda, right? My fitness may be 4 or 5, or it might be number 6, or whatever the case is, right? Especially during the holidays, right? We got family gatherings, kids have like school recitals or whatever, so understanding like there's a season and a time and a place for you to ramp your fitness up and bring it back down. But to answer your question, a maintenance routine is going to look like 2 times a week, strength training, or and then on top of that, trying to get in as many steps as you can, right? So a maintenance routine for my clients looks like I'm going to strength train twice a week, and I'm going to walk 7 to 10,000 steps a day. And if I can't walk 7 to 10,000 steps a day, maybe we add in 20 to 30 minutes of that smart cardio training that I was talking about. Okay. And then as your as your schedule opens up, then you can start to add in as much as you want or as little as you want, provided that you're able to actually recover from whatever it is that you're adding in.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Fantastic. I love that. Just how adaptable it is, regardless of your situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Super. I mean, it happens with pro athletes all the time, right? People love to look at pro athletes and they think that they're working out all the time, but when they're in season, those guys are not going to be training 4 days a week. They're going to be lifting like twice a week. And they're at that point, they're just trying to feel healthy and stay healthy, right? So feel good and stay healthy. So they're not trying to actively like build muscle or get as strong as they possibly can. So why do we think that we're any different than our needs are any different than somebody? They're just magnified to a different extent. So.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, Luke, how can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, I'm fairly easy to find. One of the best places to get in contact with me is just going to be on the Instagrams. I'm at Coach Luke, fairly easy to remember. And then if anyone is looking for easy-ish way to get started, I have a free 30 workouts, kettlebell and bodyweight based workouts that they can download at getvirtue.com.
Okay, fantastic. We will include all of those things in the show notes. Luke, it's been a pleasure. I love how you still have that drive, even after the Marines, to for your own fitness, and of course for those with whom you serve, and who can do their own routines and really get going. So thank you.
Yeah, I hope that everyone was able to find it valuable. Thank you so much for your time, Michelle.